comprehension. You need to actually still be making sure that the kids are on task. So, what it is or it can be. Purposely reading. So purposely reading means I have my kids, they have a tracker, which I don't have on me right now, but I can show you a copy of it on my computer later. They literally track 5 words they don't know during their reading in a reading log. While they're reading, they annotate 5 words they don't know and the page number it came from. Then when the reading time's over, they're allowed to go to Oxford Dictionary and look up the definition of the word. So they're like then very cognitive of words they don't know. They write the definitions down. And then the biggest piece of that is not just that they write the words down and move on with their lives. You have conferences with them periodically. So I try to meet with my kids at least once a week during their reading. And it's just a quick 2 to 3 minutes. I take their reading logs up every class period. I look over their reading logs. And while we're conferencing, I'm like, okay, so you're reading this and you wrote this kind of stuff. So they have to write a summary of what they read, any questions they have about the book. Mine were really related to socioeconomical issues because that's what they're writing, sociopolitical, socioeconomical, any of that, because they're writing research papers on it. So they were writing questions about that, but it can be any questions, a series of questions about the story. So when you're conferencing with them, they already have things there. And then you check in about the vocabulary words. Clear up misunderstandings of the definitions. Have them using the words. Yeah?
So when you have the questions, do you have like a specific topic you're looking for? Is it just like, who's the main character?
No, they create the questions, and I give them models of the questions, right? So when I have, for this particular set of silent reading we've been doing, we're looking at socio-political issues, and they're looking specifically at mental health for their research. So if you're looking at mental health and you have questions about how this certain scene relates to mental health, what does it mean when Pi is having conversations with an orangutan in the boat? What does that tell me about his mental health? Is he crazy? Is Pi crazy right now? Because he's talking to a tiger. Those are questions that some of the kids have written down. I'm really confused right now, especially when they start getting to the end, right? One of my little girls is reading Warm Bodies. And tying that to mental health has been really interesting because she's looking at it. She goes, well, what I'm seeing here is this connection of how this idea of intimacy or connection with another person can actually bring you back, right? Because the zombies are zombies, but then they like fall in love or have a personal connection with a human and then gain their humanity back. So she's looking at that. If they can't find any words they don't know, the book's too easy and they need to change their book. And that was part of the shopping we did. They had to do the 5-finger when they were picking their book out. So the 5-finger means look at any page in the book, just grab a random page in your book. If they can recognize 1 to 2 words, or if they don't know 1 to 2 words, if they look at it and they're like, oh, I don't know these 2 words on this entire page, that book's too easy for them to read. If there's like 3 or maybe 4 words they don't know, depending on the words, then that book's like in the right. It's like that just right porridge. That one's going to be like challenging enough for them, but not too challenging. If there are 5 or more words on that page they don't know, that book's going to be too difficult for them to read. And to avoid them from going, oh, I don't know 5 words on any of these pages, they have to write the words down, right? So that you don't have the kid who's like, I don't know what "the" means. So you make them write those words down, and I can show you kind of what that looks like later, what that book shopping looked like. That's something that was really a lot of fun for them to select their own books. Now we get to the point when they're doing their reading and I tell them to stop for the day, they get mad at me. They want to keep reading. That could partially because they're done, they don't want to research. So clear up misunderstandings, answer any of their questions, ask them questions about the book to start doing some of that literary reading comprehension. And then that makes it they're building their own lexicon at that point. Questions on SSR.
When you say purposeful reading, is that tying back to like having a theme that you're asking questions about?
So that could be, that could be the theme that you're asking questions about. So like for this case, they're reading specifically about the research project they're doing. When we move into dystopian units, maybe what are some ways that the society within your novel could fall apart, right? Or what are some ways people might think it's perfect? It could also, purposeful reading is when they're making their comments. If I'm like, okay, today I want you specifically reading for connotation, like word choice, right? If we've been doing a hyper focus on word choice, I want you specifically looking for word choice, and I have that chart, right? Here's the word, the definition of the word, and the connotation it has, positive, negative, and why. The effect it has on the reader itself. To have them start thinking beyond, which then gives them that reading comprehension that a lot of them lack because they don't know what words mean. So then they have to start thinking about the words. And I'm probably going to actually have my freshmen start doing that in the spring as we start getting ready for the EOC, is that very purposeful reading with an independent novel. Any more questions on that? Okay. No. All right. So there's the Krashen's two-step approach for free reading. So this is actually Krashen, I forget his first name, but he did a lot of research on this. There's 2 different ways to approach this. You start with step 1, self-selected voluntary reading. This is kind of where they pick the book. This gets them comfortable with the idea of reading and developing their own vocabulary. It builds their general vocabulary and knowledge of the world because, you know, when you're reading, you're learning new things, even if you're reading a science fiction novel. That will make academic reading more comprehensible. They have to start with this free reading. If they're not having fun reading for stuff they choose, when you put an academic anything in front of them, they're going to shut down because they immediately think reading's hard. So they have to like build up their confidence in reading by getting to pick their own. They read narrowly in order to take advantage of prior knowledge on a topic or book series. So a lot of kids may be like, oh, I'm going to read Harry Potter. I've seen the movies. So now I want to read the book. I had a few kids pick books based on that. Well, I read the movie. I've seen the movie. Ready Player One is a popular one right now because they've all seen the movie, and now what I'm getting is the comments, Miss, this didn't happen in the movie. What's happening here? I don't get this. Why is this so different? So they're starting to make that connection, and they're starting to comprehend, but they're already familiar with the topic, what's happening there, so they feel more comfortable reading. That's extremely important. You have to get them comfortable and enjoying reading before you can get them into the academic part, which I think we do a poor job of in our school as a whole, right? I know our middle school has the kids every day, they have to have a novel, right? They have to like carry their novel around to every class, and if they have any free time in class, the expectation is they read. So they are having some fun. Then they get to high school, and what? This is the book you will read. You will read nothing else. Here are the articles you will read from these like really extensive fancy magazines and newspapers.
So is your argument, is the purpose of this to increase the child's reading, or is the purpose to like the end goal of this, is it interest, or is it interest tied in with academics?
Interest tied in with academics.
When you do this, like when you allow them to pick a book and you do like all the topic stuff, do you do this throughout the year, or is it, hey, we did this one time, we did a project over this, it was good, now let's read The Handmaid's Tale?
We're going to do it throughout the year. So even while we have the book that we're reading specifically, so I just started it with my sophomores, and I'm going to start implementing it with my freshmen. Where it's sometimes only 10 minutes of class that they're reading, right? We don't always have this huge amount of time, but we do have a 90-minute block. So I've implemented it with my sophomores. They're used to now. They come in and they grab their books and they're reading. If they don't have their book, then they do need to grab a different book and read, which then that becomes an issue, right, with a purposeful reading, because then they're not on their topic. But if you have them reading something of their own and it's purposeful, that they can tie in with what they're doing with, let's say, Handmaid's Tale, that we're moving into with the freshmen soon. And they can tie in with some of the concepts that they're doing in Handmaid's Tale, or some of the different aspects of analysis that we're teaching them, that they can do it something that's easy for them and fun for them, then it'll be a lot easier for them in the academic aspect of it.
How do you balance that?
That's difficult. So that starts into being able to, one, have the time eked out for reading. And then there is always some sort of end-all project with it. This time, my sophomores, their research project revolves all the way around their thing. It could be something fun, right? Like what I think I'm going to do for my next project with my kids is they're going to have to do a book talk. Like, here's my book, here's some of the stuff that was really cool about it, they'll stand up for 2 minutes and talk about their novel of choice. And then other kids are going to want to read it. and stuff. So then I'm gonna start modeling what a book talk looks like
Okay.
for them in that process. And then when we're doing, okay, so we've talked about this and we're gonna analyze, first I want you to take this passage, take a passage from your book, and we'll analyze it because it's something you're more comfortable with. Now let's look at this passage from Handmaid's Tale and analyze it. So that they're doing both, right? Now that becomes more of like, all right, if there's some kids reading the same book, then they're gonna be grouped next to each other to analyze together, which I try to do with my lowest kids. They read the same books a lot of times. Like I've got 3 sophomores in one class who are reading Down These Main Streets. So when it comes time to like discussion on the book, I'll conference with all 3 of them. I still have the individual conferences, but sometimes I like to conference with all 3 of them at once so that they can help each other too. All right. So when you're done with the self-selected voluntary reading, then the next step is the narrow academic. Reading about an academic topic of their own choosing. Okay, we're still pulling in the stuff that we're doing, but we want to make sure that they get to choose an academic topic because we know how many things our kids are interested in. It's a plethora, right? We have the kids who want to do engineering, the kids who are really fascinated with art. There's a lot of academics to art. Some kids are really interested in social studies. Very few kids are actually interested in literature. Unfortunately, right? So they get to choose a topic a little bit and do that. And what that looks like looks different in every classroom, right? It could be, all right, you're going to do like mini reading based on the topic that you like, so you have to find it, like teaching them how to do that research and finding an academic article or something about their topic so that they can start doing that. And it gives them knowledge of academic conventions and language, which will help them across all their disciplines. If they get to choose, it's like, okay, this set of kids wants to actually read about volcanoes. Then let's find an article for this set of kids about volcanoes, and they can practice their skills on that article that gives them the academic lexicon they need, but gives them access to something they're actually interested in, and then they're going to be more interested in learning it. Questions? Okay. We're going to move on and actually talk about the SIOP model, just a piece of it. The SIOP model itself is huge. That band.
They're so bad too.
That's middle school band.
They're bad.
All right, so the SIOP model, we'll talk a little bit about it, but I'm only going to talk to you about the vocabulary instruction piece of it. But we'll do it overall. So overall, SIOP is 30 different scaffolded steps and differentiated instruction. It's a lot to it, and it's divided into 8 components, and I'll show you what those 8 are. Benefit all scholars when it's done in the classroom. I've actually started using this last year with my lower seniors, and I saw significant improvement in their comprehension and what they were doing in class when I used this model, and it helped everybody. All right. Covers the use of both content and language objectives to help guide classroom instruction, and we can talk separately about what a language objective looks like. Those are something I've struggled with, and I finally started balancing that. Like that's the vocabulary piece of it and what that actually looks like. Differentiated instruction for lower level while also providing rigorous instruction for higher level kids. So it allows it all in the same space without having to change your stuff too much. And then proven by research to help growth in all scholars taught, not just the ELs, and makes connections between content being taught and background information, students' prior knowledge. Because if you're going to activate that prior knowledge, they will do everything. Sorry, I'm using your desk for my... All right. So SIOP framework, the 8 components, lesson preparation, putting it together, the background knowledge for your kids, comprehensible input, strategies, interaction, practice and application, lesson implementation, and review and assessment. And I have more information about the whole process. So I do have information about the whole process, but we're really only going to talk today about the vocabulary, which is part of the background and activation. So you're trying to connect new vocabulary to prior instruction or scholars' own experiences to get that information to stick. So if you can get them to figure out how that connects to what they already know, they'll remember the wordies here. When you're introducing content vocabulary, you give the word definition where it's found in the text to serve as a pre-reading method for the students. Like if you have lower kids, you're like, okay, here's the word, you're going to find it on this page, this paragraph. Or you can use the words for pieces of author's craft to help students see the use of academic language and use. I'm going to give you guys a quick example of what that looks like in my classroom with freshmen, because it looks a little different. I'm not giving them the like you're going to find it on this page, but how we go back to it. And then also mix academic language with social language to help them learn the connection between the two.
That's where we get the cringe.
That's where we get cringe, right? When they're like, oh, the internal groan, all of that, when you can add that in there. And it gives the students the cognate of their home language, and academic can also help them connect if there is a cognate for it. Be like, oh, this is the same as this word in Spanish, right? Because that's the primary language in our school. All right, so pre-teaching vocabulary. This is where a lot of us struggle. Sometimes we're like, oh, we have to give them all the words at once. And they never learn all the words. So what I have found, it helps to do no more than 3 to 4. I personally say no more than 3 words from your text to cover a day. You're going to go back and cover more each day, each lesson. With each word, model the pronunciation for them at least 3 times. This seems like really, really silly because we teach high schoolers, but a lot of them don't know how to pronounce words. And then when you ask them to like speak or you ask them to say something, they're afraid to say anything because they're afraid of being like laughed at for pronunciation, just like they laugh at me when I mispronounce Spanish words. Ask them to say the words back to you. And I'm going to model this in just a minute. Give them the definition and an example sentence using the word, and then in small groups have them create their own sentences using the words. I use dry erase boards. I'm like, write down a sentence using the word, and then I can just have them pop it up at the end of our time before creating a sentence on their own. For the lowest kids, and this is the case where you give them a sentence stem, right? Or have like, here's the words. You already have the vocabulary word. Look at the sentence, which word would fit in here? Like that word bank idea if you've given them more than one word. So, my example, I'm going to go into teacher mode for a second so you can see what this looks like. So today's vocabulary word is extenuating. Our word is extenuating. Extenuating. Say it with me. Extenuating. 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 Right. Extenuating is an adjective. It is an adjective, which means tending to lessen the real or apparent seriousness of something, such as a crime, offense, or fault, providing a partial justification or excuse for something, right? That's a lot of words. Essentially what that means is if you have done something wrong, because that's what it means, real or apparent seriousness of a crime or offense meaning someone thinks that you did something wrong to them, you say, I had extenuating circumstances, right? So like in Aladdin, when he stole the bread to feed the children, that was an extenuating circumstance. He was wanting to feed hungry kids. When people go to jail or they've done something illegal, they try to claim extenuating circumstances. We saw this recently in the news. Amber Geiger tried to say, oh, there were extenuating circumstances in why I shot that man, right? They tried to use that claim on why she should be found innocent. Okay? So, example, make sure you write down the sample sentence. No evidence was presented to suggest cause or extenuating circumstances. So make sure you copy that down. And then, okay, I'll stop my teacher mode. So then the next thing is I have them do it. And if you notice on it, I always make sure that the word stands out every time it pops up. I'll sometimes even highlight it so they see it again and again. They have to see it, they have to use it, they have to write it. I think studies show, I forget the exact number, it's like it has to be seen, heard, written at least 10 times for it to stick. So we make sure we drill that in their heads. We say it to them. They say it back to us. They use it in sentences. Then we move into reiterating it during instruction. So when you come across the word in your reading, pause. Ask the students what that word meant, so then they have to go back to their notes, or remember, a few of them at that point will be like, oh, it means this. And asking why the author might use that word in their text. All right, so the example I did is we were reading How It Feels to Be Colored Me. So I asked the kid to read I Am Colored, but I offered nothing in the way of extenuating circumstances except the fact that I am the only Negro in the United States whose grandfather on the mother's side was not an Indian chief. So here's where we pause. That's a dry erase marker, right? Okay, so Here's our vocabulary word, extenuating. What is extenuating?